Otis, that's right.
Okay, 6 p.m. Welcome to this meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. This is April 30th, 2020. It felt to me like there were 279 days in April this year, but apparently there were only 30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped by the Ways and Means Committee and by GCTV. If anyone else is doing so, please let me know at this time. Seeing none. I want to welcome everyone and ask you to please mute your microphones if you haven't already. Clerk Scott, would you please take the roll?
Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Oh, Fernando, is that you? No, he still can't hear us. I'm sorry. Roll call. Councilor Wheeler.
Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound.
Councilor Forgy. Here. Councilor Bottomley.
Here.
Councilor Disorder. Here. Councilor Elmer.
Here.
Chairman Wheeler, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Clerk Scott. So we have a number of departments to get through tonight, but I'm happy to see so many department heads here. That's great. I want to thank you all for answering Councilor Disorder's questions. I believe we got all of your responses before 5 p.m. today. We appreciate that. We are going to start with the Health Department. So I'll welcome Director Valerie Bird. And don't forget to unmute your microphone, Director.
How do I unmute?
You're, okay. I think I can hear you, Valerie.
Okay,
You're all
good.
set, Valerie.
All right. Would you like to, I know the Health Department is kind of in the middle, much in the middle as anyone right now in dealing with the craziness of the pandemic. Do you want to give us a brief overview of how you're doing and where things are at?
Well, I am splitting my time between the EOC and my Sanderson Street office because there's still activities that need to be followed through in the department. I still have permits to issue. I still have inspections to do, and we still have complaints to follow up on. So between that and following up on what's going on in the EOC with all our cases, it's been pretty busy. It's been busy. Is there anything in particular you would like to know that I haven't already sent to you?
I don't think so. I think we'll just jump into your budget and see what questions counselors have. So the Health Department's budget, the narrative begins on page 126 of your budget books, and the numbers are on 127. And I will ask the first question while committee members are digging through to find the right page. So some modest increases in the budget this year, but those look to be countered by a decrease in part-time salary. I guess first of all, I should say how much I appreciate that we have a nearly mostly fully staffed health department at this time. I cannot imagine if this had happened 2 years ago. So you've got here a request
I'm sorry, I lost you.
I understand that's to join the mosquito control district, and is that a shared cost between Franklin County communities to deal with mosquito?
It is.
I forget the name of the virus, but
Right.
it's not the virus that I'm thinking about right now.
It's Triple E and West Nile virus. It is, and I put that actually in my narrative that I sent to you. I understand that if we don't have the money to join that, that's okay. We'll revisit it next year because we are so overcome with the pandemic stuff that I don't know how much time the different communities are going to have to develop that. So I'm okay with eliminating that $5,000.
Okay, so if we had to cut, that would be
If you had to cut,
that would be
yes.
like,
And if you
okay.
don't, that's a benefit to the city of Greenville residents.
Great. Yeah, personally, I'm sort of more inclined than not to make emergency preparedness steps such as that right now. But we'll see what other counselors think. We have a question from Counselor Forgy.
Thank you. Got to get my microphone working there. Actually, that's a great segue into what expectation do you have impact on your budget going forward because of the pandemic? Are you anticipating stepping up parts of this budget, preparedness? How much of that comes out of your budget, and how much of that would be coming from other places like EOC, allocations in money, police, fire, that kind of thing? I know it's kind of a what if in the future question, but I wonder if you've given any thought to budgetary needs going forward from this, from 2021.
Absolutely. Right now, a lot of our expenses are coming from the EOC. Our needs are coming from the EOC, and that's from the COVID-19 FEMA money. And we did get a grant from the FERCOG, which we are hoping to get another grant. And that pays for our nursing staff and our hospital liaison. So I do know that that part of it will be taken care of, I hope. As far as next year goes, we're just playing it by ear because nobody knows when this is going to end. I'm anticipating that it will go through the summer. So, and I don't have, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you, and I wanted to also thank you as well and all the people that are on the front line. I add my voice to Council Wheeler's voice. This would not have been possible for us to do this great a job that everybody is doing if it had been 2 years ago. I'm very interested in knowing about the role your department will take in the preparedness question as we go forward after everything, I hope, quiets down.
What we're doing right now, what we're doing is there's myself and one other inspector in the office, and we're taking the calls as they come in, whether it's a complaint or a restaurant inspection or somebody's not social distancing. We're taking those complaints immediately. We try to get on them immediately. We can't let them build up because then we'll fall behind. And I don't know what else I can tell you, but that's what we've been doing.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Question from Counselor DeSorger.
Hi. I just wanted to also say thank you first. I can have seen a little bit of what you're doing. It's unbelievable, and we are all very grateful. I think that I had just a comment on the telephones. I thought that was a very good idea for the extra money for the telephones in case they were ever subpoenaed. I had not thought of that. And lastly, I just had a question, and this will be something for as we go forward. Are you getting multiple complaints about is a lot of your time taken up by multiple complaints about what people think that, like, people are not social distancing, et cetera? Do you receive a lot of those calls for that?
Yes, I'll say yes. Probably at least 50% of the calls are related to people not social distancing. I'll tell you, I had 3 complaints in one day regarding CVS about people not social distancing in the store. I've had complaints about people walking around the golf course. I've had people complaining about a flower shop being open. I mean, there's a lot of complaints, and we're handling them one at a time. As soon as they come in, we try to jump on them.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
I also want to let you know that we've also had a number of housing complaints. And those housing complaints, they're actually joint inspections. Without the building department, we would be nowhere because we do them together. We might ride separately in our own cars, but we do the initial inspection together.
Okay. Great. No further questions. Good job.
I have another question about, we have the, Counselor DeSorger mentioned the $2,000 for telephones. I think the building inspections department has a similar request. It makes perfect sense to me. We are a city, we should be properly equipping our department heads. The $3,000 for legal expenses, that's that's basically for housing court. Is that correct?
Correct. That's for housing court. We also have to summons whoever summons the occupants of that particular house that we had recently, and we have to pay for that.
Right.
And that comes out of our budget. So that money would be for that, and also for the legal advice from our attorney, or representation from our attorney.
That makes perfect sense to me. Can I ask where that money has come from historically? Has it, if there hasn't been a line item for it, has it come out of the city's legal expense? Do you know, or
That I don't know.
general?
I know the summonses the health department paid for. As far as Roger's legal expense, I believe we split that between the building department and our department. You can check with Mark Snow on that. He would know that answer.
Okay, that makes sense. A couple more questions, just going down my list of increases, because that's what everyone always asks about. We have a request for some clothing and uniforms. Looks like you're hoping to update it with the new seal. I just wondered if that's a one-time cost. Nice. You're wearing the shirt.
This is an older shirt.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would probably be an annual expense. I'm not sure how that is, but for right now, we would need to outfit with at least some appropriate uniforms with correct seal.
Okay.
So and we have 3 people we're outfitting, so I thought $600 was very reasonable.
Yeah. Any questions from committee members? Counselor Elmer.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your service. I had 2 questions. One, the meetings and seminars line item, I wondered whether you're going to be able to do that with travel restrictions. And then the second, and maybe you're not the right person to ask, but do you have a sense of where the county is in terms of flattening the curve? Do you have any firsthand data? Thanks.
The first question about meetings and seminars, I'm doing the budget like pre-pandemic. I'm looking at it from pre-pandemic standpoint. We still have to get our credits in. We still have to go to the updated seminars to get what's new in the field. So that's why I put that in. If I don't put anything in and the pandemic is over in December, January, then where are we? And we have no money for training, and that training is a requirement. As far as flattening the curve, we pretty much, we're kind of like level, but It's only been for a couple of days. You really have to watch it, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Byrd. Are there any further questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you for all the time and effort you're putting in, and please thank your coworkers in the department for us.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, Council on Aging. So we'll welcome Director Hope McCary.
Hello. So I want to thank all of you on City Council for all the hours you have spent and will be spending as volunteers. I know it's an arduous task, and I do not envy you in this particular budget season. I know it's going to be a hard one. And I just want to say tonight, because sometimes I forget to say this, the COA is well aware of all of the myriad of needs for the city. But I'm here to advocate for the seniors because that's our mission. But we have conversations with the board at staff level. We do offer intergenerational programs. And so even though I'm here tonight advocating for the Council on Aging, it is also with a mindfulness that we are part of the big picture. I also wanted to give a shout out to the EOC, who is now located in the building that's usually the senior center. It is a fine group of professionals working there, and it really has been my honor and privilege to work alongside them. I have learned an awful lot, and it's been quite an experience, and I just admire all of you very much, very much. As part of my small part in the EOC was helping design the call line tracking and data collection, and I also have been answering the phone. I've taken about 45% of the calls. It's a great team to work with, and so that's been very interesting. I've learned a lot more about public health. To get started with my time there, I took the ECS 100 training class through FEMA as part of just a way to sort of figure out the command structure there. I have a lot of licensures and certifications, and I need those to run the senior center. I'm a registered nurse. I'm certified through the Massachusetts Council on Aging as a program manager. I'm ServSafe certified. I'm a certified group fitness instructor and certified personal trainer with a specialty in senior strength training. I have a certificate from Boston University in older adult behavioral health. In my career in Greenfield, I've written and administered over $500,000 of grants I've brought in to the city of Greenfield in my time here. That's relevant because the grants are an awfully big part of in terms of our staffing. It really fills the gaps that pop up from the general fund. So I mentioned that because the grants are really important. So I think you guys might want to get right into asking questions about that budget.
Yeah, thank you for the overview. Appreciate it. And you make a good point about grants. I think if every department had as many positions partially covered by grants as yours does, we'd be in great shape. Do we have questions from subcommittee members? Wow. Seeing, Councilor DeSorger.
I just have a comment, not a question. Yours is pretty much level funded as I could see across the board. I did want to comment that I have spoken, because my neighborhood is full of seniors, to several who have received phone calls, and it has meant a lot to them because they are home and isolated, and they said someone was checking on me. Sometimes it was you, and sometimes it may have been someone from the EOC. I know you've answered my phone call, but I wanted to thank you for that because the isolation, it's getting tough. So thank you.
You're welcome, Ginny. Counselor DeSorer, sorry. Yeah, the Are You Okay calls is something we started new once the pandemic started. You know, it's funny because it's something we talked about for a long time and we hadn't launched. And so we finally did. We have 6 volunteers working from home. These are our usual, some of our usual front desk volunteers, in addition to the staff. We have made over 1,500 phone calls to Greenfield residents. We continue to do so. Seniors can sign up for a regular phone call. We started with the 80+ age group and have been working our way down. It's been incredibly well received, and I'm really proud of my team and particularly those 6 volunteers who are just still working like we all are, but remotely.
That's great. Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Forgy.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Hope, haven't seen you in a while. Just because we're a new finance, Ways and Means Committee, excuse me, I wondered if for the purposes of knowledge to the group, could you just explain what longevity pay is?
Longevity pay applies to the staff in my department, applies to the staff who are in the SSEA bargaining unit. And as part of their agreement, they receive a certain amount of money for each. After 10 years, they start to accrue longevity. And so they receive a small amount per year after that. So I'm super fortunate that my two of those staff have been with the senior center for a long, long time. The finance manager has been there longer than I have, and the activities director has been with us now for about 15 years. So we enjoy longevity, and they've earned that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Clerk Scott, you have well, actually, I believe it was Clerk Scott, but I see a comment from someone under the City of Greenfield account.
It is. I just wanted to comment that there is a quorum of the council viewing the meeting and caution councilors not to constitute a quorum in discussion for discussion purposes.
Thank you for that, Clerk Scott, and thank you, councilors, for listening in. We can't take questions tonight, as the clerk just said, but feel free to write any down if they occur to you, and I'm sure department heads would be happy to answer them via email at a later date. Any further questions for Director McCary? Okay, seeing none. It's a you know, as Councillor DeSorger said, level funded budget aside from a well-deserved raise. So nothing super controversial this year. I just want to say I hope that the seniors are able to get back into their senior center before too long, but I really appreciate all the adjustments and flexibility and the work that yourself and your employees are doing. Director McCary, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to continue to move on. We're going to go next to the Energy Department and welcome Director Carol Collins. This is on page 88 of your budget book. Welcome, Director Collins. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're going to struggle to ask too many questions with your budget since it actually went down.
I know.
We'll try to pass the time.
Yeah.
You want to give a brief overview of either your budget or the department in general?
Sure. Well, I'll just say that I've been looking at the budget as a kind of a means to get out an abbreviated annual report. So the narrative kind of gives an overview of what we've accomplished in the past year and what we're looking forward to doing. So we're on track with all of that. As you know, I did send a memo in response to Councilor DeSorda's question, and I apologize that it just got to you not too long before the meeting. So I didn't know if anyone wanted to focus on that. I'm happy to answer it. But I guess as a preface, I just tried to clarify that the energy budget is somewhat unique in that I have to have a crystal ball a year and a half before the year starts, trying to know the weather, what the energy rates are going to be, and then there's constant shifting and new buildings and other buildings closing. So I do my best, but there is always some play. And so at the end of every year, there's a reconciliation, and there is usually, knock wood, there is usually a surplus. So this year, as I stated, I'm predicting at this point in the year that there should be about an $80,000 surplus. So I did go in to explain that a little bit. And I would just say that, one of the things, this is a kind of a crazy time, and I know everyone's doing great work on all of their fronts. And I've been here at home, which I realize is very dimly lit compared to everyone else's screen, that I need to up my lighting game. But that every project that I'm working on is to save the town money. I still call it town, but save Greenfield money. So we're plugging away, and things are coming together for when we're able to do construction again. And it's very exciting to just be able to keep plugging away at trying to keep things under control. Did you freeze or did I?
I think that, and your work in particular is a model for the type of analytical thinking and implementation that the city needs more of. So I really appreciate it. I appreciated your narrative. In your narrative, you noted the building dashboard, which in 2 years on the council, I had never looked at.
Well,
So,
it's only been around for about 6 months, so I printed one out so everyone can see. And I wanted to highlight, thank you for bringing that up, that on the city's website, there is a link from the homepage. There is now comprehensive building data on each of the municipal buildings. That it's a lot to kind of pull together, and it's kind of a work in progress, but it does, in addition to talk about the building details and energy consumption, it also talks about completed and planned capital projects to kind of have one central location to see a snapshot of what's going on. So I hope that may be of use to the council in the future. And thank you.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone, everyone on the council to take a look at it. I found it useful. I immediately started jumping around and looking at some of the capital projects. I looked at Newton School, that sort of thing. It goes into a level of detail that I appreciated in terms of, does it have single pane windows, double pane, that kind of thing. So I really appreciate it. I think we had a question from Councilor DeSorger.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to listen to you, because every year you're finding something extra to give back. It's wonderful. And it's okay that you're dimly lit, because you're probably saving energy at home. Okay.
You could tell my daughter that. She has every light on.
So I just had one question, and that was in regards to, and thank you for sending that information, the Green River School.
Yes.
The 21,000 that won't be expended. That's for that I'm assuming is for all of the expenses of that school. And will you be, when this ever goes out, will you have input into what type of heating system, energy efficient heating system, or did they work on their own?
It's actually kind of a long answer, so I'm going to try to make it as brief as possible. But I've already spent a lot of time working on the heating system replacement for Green River School, and there were challenges in that. And it is still, as far as I'm aware, to be moving forward. I was really hopeful to do a system similar to the John Zahn Center, or now that we have at the town hall, heat pumps. It turned out that in the end, we just couldn't make it work. So it is supposed to be a very high efficiency gas fired system that will be a lot less than it was previously when it was open. And I'll be working with George Vandelinder and the school department to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure of the status of it currently, but I believe that it's in the works for an RFP.
Yes, I listened. I don't think the RFP has gone out yet, so
Yeah, I don't think so, but they
Yeah,
take a
we-
while.
I was just curious about the efficiency, if it was going to.
Well, I'm going to be pushing for the highest efficiency that we can get, and
Okay.
we've already been in conversations with utility to get rebates and to work with them on that. So they're very supportive.
Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from Ways and Means members? Okay, I'm going to recognize President Stempel. In spite of what I just said, we can have 6 counselors participate in the meeting. President Stempel, did you have a question or a comment?
Everybody, just a quick comment. I just have to get in my praise for Director Collins at least 5 or 6, 7, 8 times a year. I'm just always impressed with the work that you do, Carol, and the amount of knowledge, the wealth of knowledge you bring to the city of Greenfield. And so if praise isn't enough, but I want to continue to encourage you and keep you here in the city because you're just such a value and such a light too. I've always enjoyed working alongside you. So thank you for putting this budget together and all the work that you do to help us honestly keep our budget down. So I wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Yep, I just want to echo what President Stempel said. Although I do worry, Director Collins, that you are going to get so good at predicting our energy budgets that we won't have these surpluses that we enjoy.
They're still happening. No matter how much there's always things going on.
Good. Any further questions for Director Collins? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Director.
Thank you so much.
Okay, pulling up my agenda. Next on the list, we have the licensing department, page 78, and I believe we'll welcome Chief of Staff Letourneau for this one.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Great. I unmuted you, but I've got these earbuds and I'm always suspicious whether or not they work. So I'm here on behalf of Lori Krikorian from the licensing department. In my role as chief of staff, I'm also technically the director of general administration, and so I oversee about 12 departments and all the work that they do. And I want to just say before I get into licensing that I'll just, this will be a love fest a bit, but I'm just so impressed with everybody who's been working with the city, the directors who went ahead of me, but also all the staff of the city and the department heads, and just the amount of work we did to get to the point where we can work remotely, where we can address the pandemic. It's really staggering, and I'm so impressed with everybody and how flexible and amenable they've been to it. We've had to, but people have been really great. Hope was talking about her work with the community line, and I've gotten to know Valerie and everybody during the EOC time, so it's been great. So I just want to say that first. Licensing is a small one, but a very, very important one. It's part of Mass General Law that we have to have, that we're the licensing authority under certain things. You guys all know liquor licenses as one of the pieces that licensing is involved with, and of course that brings a good deal of revenue to the city. There's, of course, other things, lots of other licensing things, businesses, business licenses, livery and taxi services, a range of other things. One of the services that I mentioned, I did the memo for the licensing division today. We talked about the junk dealer license. And I just want to clarify that that actually encompasses a lot of our antique and secondhand stores. So right now they are not open and they may be hurting. And so that was one of the only things that I mentioned may be a drop in revenue because some of them may not be reopening or they may have to be late on their payments. The Board of License Commissioners did vote at the last meeting via WebEx to extend that deadline for about a month so that people can figure out what's happening with their businesses. So I guess, I am nowhere near the expert on this stuff. You guys know Lori Krikorian has been here for years. You'll see in the budget, it is primarily her salary. She works 4 days a week and she works her tail off during that time. And she is taking some much needed time off. She has opted to take and use some of her accrued vacation time during the spring. She said she was, quote, happy to, in order to be out of the town hall and only be there when needed, because her job really requires her to be physically there and to have her be able to physically distance and stay out of the building as much as possible. She's been limiting her hours and just taking a break. So that's why I'm here for her tonight. You'll see in the budget, she also gets the longevity pay that was spoken about earlier. She's been with us for a long time. She's definitely an expert in the workings of licensing and how we do business along those lines. The other things are quite small items. So there's a piece for advertising. That's required by law. There are certain things that need to be advertised in the paper before they have a hearing. As you guys know, as counselors, there's all these requirements. And then there's a small amount for office supplies. And that's really it. So, but I'm available to answer questions.
All right. Thank you. Do subcommittee members have a question on licensing? As Director Letourneau said, it's a small budget. I can't imagine cutting part of it. I really appreciate Ms. Krikorian's ability and all the work that she does with the Licensing Commission. I think they process an astonishing number of licenses in the brief hours that they meet. I'm always on their agenda and been like number 38 or something that they get through.
Yeah.
But I do have
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, Councillor DeSorger.
I'm sorry, I always have a question.
Good.
I just wanted to know, because we get a lot of the SSEA, I'm finding this is my first year as a counselor. And so we have, I think there are 17 different groups. Is just for my edification, no questioning about it, but is licensing part of SSEA or what? Or do you don't? If you don't know that, it doesn't matter.
She's in one. There's a bargaining unit involved. I don't know. I would be lying if I knew right off the top of my head if that was the one. If anybody else knows,
Lying's not good, and it didn't matter. It was just like learn.
Seeing a check, Director Moore gave us a thumbs up, which I'm going to take to mean yes. And
okay.
Does that answer your question, Counselor?
All set. Thank you so much, Danny, for all you're doing too. Bye.
We have another
question.
Thank you,
Jenny.
Counselor Forgy.
Great.
It was just to enlighten or add to the other conversation. SSEA is a contractual bargaining unit, and it's really a lot of the folks that are in that unit are the people that are in the trenches on a day-to-day basis. They really make all the offices run. And I don't think you're going to find many people that work for the town not covered by either a union or a contract. So SSEA bargains, and they have longevity as part of their contractual I think it stands for, let's see, salaried, let's see, something employees association. So it's done with that in mind. And I just wanted to give that piece of information to Ginny, but I hope I haven't, anyway. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I think Counselor Forgy, I think you're right. I don't remember what the second S might be supervisory because, like Lori Kay in licensing is a bit of, she's a department of one, and then she just reports up to us, upstairs. So she really does work independently. If and ever, whenever, and if she ever decided to go, we need to make her give like 3 years notice. Because she's been doing this job for a long time. And the Board of License Commissioners, like you guys, are volunteers. I was so impressed with how well they did on the WebEx meeting. They loved it. And well, maybe they didn't love it, but they did great. And I think in part it's because Lori Krikorian gets them in order and prepared and, works with the citizens and the business owners who are working with that board. So it's a great, and also here's a fun fact, just to make everybody have a little funny. License, that word is one of the words that I have such a hard time writing. So it was really good to get ready for this meeting because I had to write licensing or license so many times. So.
All right, it's all in education. Okay, I'm losing a couple video here. But
There you go.
Okay, you're back. All right. I'm gonna try to ask one question. Let's see if I'm gonna dance around it. Licensing does occasionally get some really thorny issues that as it goes up the ladder, it becomes kind of unrealistic to expect a board of volunteers to enforce certain things. Is this on your mind, Director Letourneau, just in terms of modernizing the department and wrapping your head around whether enforcement works when thorny issues come up?
Yeah, so ever since the new administration came on, we've been working with licensing. One of the things I'll say about that is Lori Krikorian, again, she's really good at reminding both me and the commissioners what the lane is and what their purview is in terms of the law, and in terms of what their scope of work really is. And it isn't to do certain things. So she often will come to me with we'll go over the agenda before the meeting and she'll say, for example, First Amendment issues, oftentimes they'll come to licensing to try and get permission to do a protest, things like that. I mean, technically they don't. And she reminds people of that we don't have to do those things. Certain things aren't required to go through licensing. But since she's been doing it so long, she knows the rules and that, the scope is really here. And if it starts going outside of here, she knows which other authority it needs to go through. And so she's in communication with the police department, the fire department, whoever else would need to know. And then she and I have looked over the items that the licensing board has been involved with since the days of the select board. And there is some opportunity there to streamline some of that. And I've had some discussions, I think, with you, Councillor Wheeler, and with Councillor Dolan and others about, whether or not that's something that either the mayor or the councillors want to look at, because there are some things that maybe it doesn't make sense to have to go to a meeting for. And that's not exactly your question, but we work really closely with it. I mean, this is sort of in the weeds nerdy stuff, which is I like. So I kind of have a good time talking with Lori about this stuff. But she's amazing at pulling, and she does it to me, pulling me back and saying, "This is
kind of roundabout." It actually would have been a
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's a bandwidth thing happening here, so there's a little bit of a delay. A clearer way for me to ask my question actually would have been, the select board had a certain authority, which was clearly, or I assume was clearly drawn in the days when we were a town, and I've noticed sort of a lack of clarity there. And I don't expect you to answer it now. I'm glad that you're thinking about it and that the mayor may be thinking about it. If there are charter changes that you think might be appropriate, I would just encourage you to bring them up later in the year, and I'm sure we'll have further conversations on this.
Right. Right. Yeah. We're talking about it.
Okay. Not seeing any further questions on licensing, so thanks, Director Letourneau, for your job is done here. All right, we're going to welcome Director Eric Torog, the Planning Department. You flip the page on your budget book, it should be page 79.
Good evening, Councilor Wheeler and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and answer any questions you have on my budget. The thing I want to say about the COVID-19 pandemic is that it has impacted the work of the department. Much of our work involves public forums and large gatherings of people to gather public input. So the two major projects that have to be put on hold until the pandemic situation is resolved is our municipal vulnerability preparedness grant. We got $22,000 to do that. We've started some work on it, but right when we were about to do our forum, the big public forum, pandemic occurred. So that's going to be put off till probably late summer, fall time. And the other project impacted is the update of our open space and recreation plan, which is a very important plan because right now it's expired and we're not able to apply for park grants or other similar grants. And that work will be done by December 31st this year, but I'll have to carry over $20,000 from this year's budget to next year's budget. You'll be able to complete that work. So I just wanted to make the council aware of that. Happy to answer any questions about the budget.
Glad that you're working through it. Do we have questions from councilors? This is for anyone who's not looking at it, it's actually a small decrease. There's a couple little changes, but nothing major here. Let's see. Councilor DeSorger.
This is also just a comment, but to Eric, thank you. We were working for months on emergency preparedness and hazmat, and as you can see, these plans all need to be in order. That actually was what he was speaking of. So thank you for all you're doing. I didn't have questions on your budget. I just wanted to comment and say thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right. Any further questions for Director Torok? Okay. This seems too easy.
Yeah, that seemed too easy.
All right. I have a bigger question. It's my understanding that the planning department used to share office space with the economic development office in whatever shape or form it was. It may have been under a different title. It was before I got on the council, but has there been thought about being able to situate departments that do have some overlapping work in the same building? And Director Torog, would that make sense to you to be near the economic development office?
That's a good question. It was actually the community development portion that was under the Department of Planning and Development since 20 years or more, probably a very long time. And it separated because of the economic development person left, and a particular staff person, MJ Adams, has expertise in both. So it made sense under Mayor Martin to create its own department and combine both of those functions. My location currently at 20 Sanderson Street is a perfect fit because I work more closely with the building inspections office on code enforcement issues and zoning issues. So the fit where I'm at now is actually pretty good.
Okay, good. Yeah, that answers my question. That's makes sense. Any further questions for Director Torok? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So one from Councilor DeSorda.
I want, this really is not specifically for Eric, but were you going with that about the buildings that we rent? Were you thinking about the two different buildings that we rent, or sort of? Okay, thank you. Because I think combining whatever we can is always a good idea, but I see both of those places look fairly well. There's a lot going on in both of them, but it's good to be planning for the next thing of what things we can combine. So that was all. Thanks.
Yeah, Mayor Wiedegartner, you have, I imagine you have something to say here. Oh, you might want to unmute your microphone, please.
I've been trying to be a good bandwidth citizen, so sorry about that. Regarding your question, Otis, and it's a very good question. It's ever present on my mind with regard to how Eric and the planning department, the building inspections department, and the economic development department are located. And I think I've said this often, they, you know, regardless of whatever happened in previous administrations, I think based on my experience, the three areas are critical to one another with regard to how we move forward with economic development in the future. I would love to see the three of them together. I don't care what building it's in, but it is an important piece of how we proceed. So we're thinking about it, but this was not the year to do anything about it. So it doesn't have anything to do with whether we rent here or whether we rent there or what's the wise thing. It has more to do with continuity and how we present ourselves as a city and how people can better access who come in to develop businesses or who want to continue with the businesses that exist. It has more to do with how easy it is for them to access the people that they need to talk to. So I haven't forgotten about it. This was not the year to try to make something like that happen.
Absolutely. I certainly hear that, but I'm glad it's on your mind. And I think, unless there's any further questions, we will move on to the city clerk's budget, which is page 75.
Hi, everybody. So the city clerk's budget has an increase of $7,200 and change. The majority of that increase is due to a line that's in the budget, contracted services, which it would be, the money that's in there is an estimated amount for contracting with general code after the ordinance review is completed to update the code of the city of Greenfield for the general ordinances. I do understand there has also been a little bit of a discussion about updating the zoning ordinance, but these funds, when I was putting the budget together, I didn't have that information. So these funds are only for the update of general ordinances, not zoning, although zoning would preferably be included in the update. The clerk's office, there are 3 employees. There are 2.5, 2 full-time and 1 part-time. I will send out salaries to you, but you also have salaries in the documents that were provided by Liz Gilman. One of the questions that Jenny had asked was, would I be expecting to return any funds to the general fund? And from the clerk's budget, I'm expecting to return just under $1,000 as my certification class in this year has been canceled, so that won't need to be paid for this year, canceled due to COVID.
Okay, thanks for the update, Clerk Scott. Do we have questions from subcommittee members? Councillor Elmer.
Hi, Kathy. I see a line item, bookbinding has been cut by $2,000. Does that mean we won't get as nicely bound a budget book next time?
No, that bookbinding doesn't have anything to do with the mayor's budget book. That bookbinding was increased last year. So the books that we're talking about binding are the vital records books for the vault, and other items that need to be bound according to Mass General Law. So there was a little bit of a backlog. Last year, I was allowed to have $3,000 to try to get it taken care of. The majority of it has been taken care of, but I have a little money left. I might try to get another book or 2 bound. And the mayor did pay for the new budget books that you have in front of you. So generally, there's $1,000 every year in my budget for the binding of books. Last year, it was increased to $3,000 to take care of some of the backlog.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Councillor Forgy, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. Kathy, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the certification that you, as a city clerk, needs to keep current. And as a follow-up to that, are you in danger of losing that certification because the classes are canceled?
So currently, I do not have my certification. There's 2 different certifications for clerks in Massachusetts and New England. One is a CMC, a Certified Municipal Clerk Certificate, that you can obtain only after being a clerk or an assistant clerk for 3 years. And it's a test that you have to take through the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association. I can test for that next year. So I'm in the process of making sure I have all my credits, all my training, that sort of thing. The other certificate is through the New England Clerks Association. That's the training that I would go to once a year, generally held in July. For the past few years, it's been at Plymouth State in New Hampshire. It's a beautiful campus. I went for my first year last year, and it's a week-long intensive class schedule. You're in class at 8 a.m. and your last class ends at 8 p.m. So you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you're in class all day long. And you're learning management, you're learning presentations, you're forming bonds with other people that do the like work that you do, so that you can have a base in which to stand on to flourish in your position. So it's not all just about how to get the job done, but it's also about relying on your peers to assist you in getting your job done. So I do not currently have either one of those, but I am working towards them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Clerk Scott? Okay.
Councillor Wheeler?
Yeah.
Did you also, so I also oversee the council budget, the election budget, and the registrar's budget?
course.
It's okay if you,
If you're able to point me to the page number, I think we might
council
take
budget is
questions. Oh, sorry. Would you say that again?
page 60, yep, page 60 for the council budget.
Thank you.
So as an overview of the council budget increased by just over $1,800. The majority of the increase is due to contractual obligations. The council has one full-time employee, and you'll also see the stipend for the counselors is in that line. On all four of the budgets that I oversee, I took a three-year average of supplies and advertising to come up with the number that I put in my budgets. So that's just how I decided to estimate the average of advertising and supplies.
Very good. Well, this is our own
The
budget.
elections.
Yeah. I was about to say, this is our own budget. I know it pretty well, but yeah, go on to elections.
Okay, elections is on page 77. So there is a decrease in this line of over $20,000. However, the reason it decreased so much was last year it was increased to buy the new gymnasium flooring. So there's actually, if you take that out of the equation, there's actually a $650 increase. The budget for the elections fluctuates every year depending on how many elections we have in that year. When we have local or state, we have different poll worker requirements. If we have a federal election like we're going to have in November, we are going to have an increase in poll workers. And I also, throughout my budgets, I reorganize them some so that the spending is actually coming out of the department in which it's required to come out of. I moved around a little bit of street listing and census work because it should have come out of registrars and it wasn't there before. So I'm just trying to make it my style. Actual spending.
That's great. We appreciate accuracy. Can you in any way foresee what impacts might occur if voting was by mail this fall?
So it's being discussed. The state is discussing and trying to lay a base for it. There are a lot of questions, from the clerks. If we will always do whatever we have to do to get the ballots to the people who want to vote. If we have to mail one to every single voter, that's what we'll do. We will be, going a little crazy. Lots of mail going to the post office, and an increase in the postal expenses for the mailing of all of the ballots, because they are more expensive than just a regular stamp. So we don't have our instructions yet, but it is being discussed at the state level.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a couple questions here. Councilor Forgy, did you have a question on one of these three department budgets?
I have a question on our council budget. So bear with me because my first year as counselor. I think I'm looking at this line item that says meetings and seminars, $6,500.
Yes.
Okay, can you tell me A, the purpose of that, and B, how much did we expend last year? Does anybody know that?
So meetings and seminars, there's an ordinance, I can't remember the chapter off the top of my head,
Mhm.
that requires there to be funding for counselors to attend meeting and seminars. And along with that goes mileage reimbursement.
Okay,
I can tell you that 3 counselors did attend, I think it was an MMA meeting in Boston.
okay,
And when you attend, your fee to attend is covered. If you have overnight stays, meals, travel costs, all of those things are reimbursable. You do need to present receipts, so on and so forth. And they're submitted from the clerk's office through accounting to be reimbursed for the counselors. I would say off the top of my head, probably about 1,300 of it was used, maybe more like 18. But it is used, and there's a lot of good education that comes along, especially through the MMA meetings.
okay. So this line item is for the purpose of counselors to educate themselves on a reimbursement basis. Okay.
Yes.
Or my question, I guess, is for instance, if I saw a seminar I wanted to attend, the MMA seminar or whatever, and it says the dues is $700 or whatever to attend, then would that be sent ahead of me or would I have to shell that out?
So the ordinance actually stipulates that each counselor has no more than $500. So 500 of that example would be covered. It can be either the office can pay for the dues or the counselor themselves can pay for it, and then it would be reimbursed to the counselor.
All right, and this reimbursable expense and everything else is in addition to the stipends that each counselor receives on an annual basis.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good question, Councillor Forgy. Thank you for that. I'd just like to add a couple things, which is that the Mass Municipal Association does make it easier to register for a lot of their events by giving you the option to bill the city. In some cases, if you get permission to go, you can choose that option. I took advantage of attending the annual meeting of the Mass Municipal Association this year, and I recommend it to all counselors who are interested as a really good way to network and find out what other cities are doing. And also, I was there with the mayor was there and Director MJ Adams. It's a good chance to get a lot of professional development done. And there will, or almost assuredly, be departmental turnbacks on that, because the reason that the line item is $6,500 is because it appropriates $500 per counselor. So naturally, there will always be a few counselors or many counselors who choose not to attend any seminars, but that money will go back into the general fund. I think Councillor Elmer had a question. Oh, and don't forget to unmute your microphone, Councillor.
Okay, thanks. On the elections, a lot of cities and some states have switched to ranked choice voting, which would add complexity because you'd have to do elections in a different way, but would save on runoffs. Do you have a sense of whether that would be a net loss or would that be a net cost? Would that cost more or cost less?
I didn't consider that when I was putting my budget together. I haven't looked at the numbers and how it would affect Greenfield, but it is something that I can look into and get back to you on. I don't have any information for you right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, what I would add to that is that a move to ranked choice voting would likely have to come from City Council, and part of the ordinance would hopefully involve looking into what Councillor Elmer just asked.
It would also require a charter change.
That's right. Good point.
And something like that may need to go to the voters for support. because it's such a drastic change.
Yes. Very good points. Councillor Forgy, did you have another question?
Yes, thank you. I must have been asleep at the wheel, and I apologize, but Kathy, when you were talking about your Board of Registrars and election budget, so on the election budget, you said that the $25,000 is not in this year's requested budget for, I'm looking at purchase of services now. And did you say that that was for repair to flooring?
So the 20,000 was for the new gym floor covering for the Greenfield High School for elections.
So is it a covering that goes on the floor temporarily?
Yes, for
Got it.
elections only.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So if you were wondering what the biggest tarp you can buy costs, it costs $20,000.
So it's actually 19 and change.
Okay.
We're rounding up.
All right. Any further questions for Clerk Scott? All right. Not seeing any. Thank you, Clerk Scott, for everything you do, and thank you to Tammy and Geneva and Tara, all of whom I've probably talked to in the past 2 weeks when I call the office, and there's always at least one person in there, which is great. So thanks for continuing to do your work.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna pull back up my agenda here, and we are going to move on to building inspections. If Inspector Snow is on the line, I believe he is. We will turn to page 100. All right, I'm gonna welcome Director Mark Snow. Director Snow, are you here? We may actually not have Director Snow. Oh, maybe he just needs to unmute. Okay, well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, we can. Is that you, Mark?
It is, yes.
All right, thank you for coming, and welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to talk now about the building inspections department, which is fully staffed compared to a couple of years ago, which I certainly appreciate. Director Snow, do you have anything to say as far as just a brief overview of either your budget or where things are at with your department?
Yes. Currently, we have 2 inspectors, that including myself and one other, and a full-time office person. We're continuing to work during these times of the pandemic, and we're trying to serve the citizens of Greenfield to the best that we can under the conditions that there are.
Great, and we
the budget,
appreciate it. No,
Thank
go
you.
ahead. Continue.
The budget this year is pretty much level funded. There is a slight increase of $30. So the budget is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it looks like maybe there's some line items for, like there was with the health department for housing court and cell phones for yourself and your colleagues. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
The legal expenses, there's never been, that I can recall, a line item for legal expenses in either the building department or the health department.
So would we assume? No, Sorry, continue.
We've always worked through that with the finance department and the mayor's office when the need was there, though the need isn't there very often. However, this past year, or the current year, we have been running into some problems that have been pretty technical and long, time-consuming problems with some housing. So as a result, we've had to have representation, legal counsel for housing court.
Right, and that makes sense to me. And if it is or may be a predictable expense, I certainly see the need or the advantage in putting it in its own category. Do we have any questions for Director Snow? Okay. It looks like we may not. Director, I certainly appreciate that you're able to continue working in the emergency. I think I've noticed that you and Director Byrd seem to work well together, and I appreciate that inspections are continuing to happen throughout all this. So thank you.
Thank you. I do have two other budgets that are underneath me, underneath the building department, if you would like to discuss those.
Please do, yes.
Okay. The first one is the weights and measures. The City of Greenfield contracts with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a state inspector to perform the inspections here in Greenfield. That's a straight fee that is invoiced from the Commonwealth and paid to the Commonwealth. It's $10,000 fee. It's been that way for a few years, and at this point, we're not anticipating any change.
Great. That's straightforward enough.
Yes. And the last is the FERCOG inspection program. The City of Greenfield contracts with the FERCOG for electrical, plumbing, and gas inspections. That budget has gone up slightly. However, that's a contract that is, I believe it's developed and established between the mayor's office and the county.
Very good. Any questions from councilors on the FERCOG inspection program or any of Director Snow's budgets? Okay. Not seeing any. Let's see. You did have, I will ask, you did have a request which was not granted for a part-time employee. Would that have been for another part-time inspector?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There was actually a $29,000 $29,600 request. That was for a part-time local inspector and some temporary clerical assistance.
Well, it sounds like you're busy, but we appreciate that you're able to get by with the staffing that you have. I think we have a question from Councilor DeSorger.
Mark, thank you for all you do. I just have one question, and this is just something I don't know. What are we weighing and measuring?
Weights and measures?
I know. I just thought, I'm saying yes. This is great that we're level funding it, and I know maybe I should know that, but I don't. So I just thought maybe you could explain it.
Okay. The weights and measures are all the measuring devices, such as the gas pumps, where you pump your gas, weights and measures, the scales in the grocery stores, retail establishments, things of that nature. Those have to be inspected and certified by the weights and measures inspector.
There you go. I'm glad you're not weighing me after COVID-19.
I'm in the same boat.
I just didn't know what it was, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Director Snow? All right, I don't think so. Thank you, Director Snow.
Thank you. Everyone stay safe.
You too. All right, so now I'm gonna ask us to turn to page 136 and 137 in our budget books. And I'm gonna welcome Director Christy Moore. I hoped to do this while the dog was still on camera, but
I know, sorry.
we're too late. So welcome, Director Moore. Would you like to give us a brief rundown of where things are at? I know you're in the EOC, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, actually tomorrow will be my 30th day over at the EOC, and I'm grateful to be in such a beautiful facility. Hope, thanks for sharing that with everybody over at the EOC. I can't wait to be a senior so I can join because it's a beautiful facility. Have a few years yet though, thankfully. So my budget is pretty straightforward. It's this is my 14th year and it's been nothing but salaries. Someday I look forward to actually having some operating expenses in there other than salaries, but we do a remarkable job with the staffing that we have, which entails 3 full-time people, myself, an assistant director, and a program supervisor. And then we hire, 40 to 50 seasonal people throughout the year. And we have anywhere from 7 to 9 at our after-school program at Four Corners and 3 to 4 at our after-school program at Federal Street, which are 9-month positions, obviously when school's in session. We run and manage all the special events, the programs, the parks, all the fun stuff that right now sadly is delayed and on hold because of our COVID-19 crisis. I'm not sure what kind of specific questions you may be interested in, but as I said, we only have 3 staff. My budget did increase this year because our current mayor was wanted to support the teen center. We've done a lot of work preparing to open that, and then COVID-19 happened. So we do have a part-time position in the budget. It's 19 hours, which will run the teen center with us and work closely with the youth commission, which has desperately been needing a position to work with and run programs. So we're hopeful that that will be supported this year in our budget. We don't expect to have any overages because we are pretty close to the dollar amount in our budget. We do have, myself, I have some longevity in there, and just so that everybody knows, SSEA stands for Salaried Schedule Employee Association, so that everyone knows. I currently am the president and look forward to start negotiating with the mayor and the city. And yeah, we don't expect to have any layoffs because at some point we're going to open and we're going to need to scramble when we set the date to open. Because normally by now in 2 weeks we have our summer seasonal staff training, so we're really behind the ball on getting everybody ready to registered for programs and also ready to have staff to run the programs.
Absolutely. Thanks for the overview. We're going to jump into questions because I see a couple counselors have questions. Counselor DeSorger.
I've seen you working full-time in the EOC, and I just recently learned that the 2 other people that you work with have been running the daycare for the emergency personnel, and I just wanted to make everybody aware of the fact that people were changing their jobs and adapting to running a daycare. I don't even know where that is, but I wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, yes, thank you for bringing that up. Part of the city's response for our first responders and essential employees is that we are one of 4 in Greenfield to offer emergency childcare. We were approved by the state. It's licensed through the EEC, which is just like the 2 inter-school programs that run at Federal and Four Corners during the school year. But they had to come out and do an inspection because we don't run licensed childcare in there through EEC. That's the RAIN site for summer camp, which is licensed through the Board of Health. So we do have anywhere from 7 to 9 kids as a max there for our essential employees for the city, and we are happy to be able to provide that service.
Great. I think we have another question. We have multiple questions. I'm going to go to Councillor Elmer next.
Hi, Christy. I'm dying to know whether the river swim area is going to be open this year. You probably don't have a crystal ball, but when would you have to make a decision?
Well, the mayor and I will be meeting in the next couple weeks to put that plan together as she released today in her press release. We're trying to pull from various sources, my National Parks and Rec Association. We've had multiple meetings to figure out the safest and best way to open facilities and programs and special events. Obviously, following CDC guidelines, especially the social distancing, that's going to be the hardest part at the river, as well as staff, because a lot of my lifeguards were unable to recertify. So we're working with the Red Cross on that. They actually just came out and released there's an online class that they can take for a 90-day renewal. So there's lots of things to sort out, but I hope to be open at some point this summer. But we need to coordinate with DPW to get the facility open and available when we flip the switch.
Thanks.
Next question from Councillor Bottomley.
I just had a quick comment. I wanted to say thank you for providing all these programs because they really add a lot to our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's a very good point. Some of the, I think, Rec Department sometimes struggles in getting all its budgetary needs met, especially capital, because they tend to be considered discretionary. But I think right now, especially, people must be appreciating the parks more than ever. I know they've been full all the time. Councillor Disorder?
This is not to do with your budget, but along the line of things opening up. I've been getting a couple of phone calls about people playing tennis, which they did not feel they were able to socially distance doing. So they felt that they were, and I can see where they're coming from. But I know we have to follow the state guidelines. But as we are opening things up, I think there are many people that are anxious to get out there, and it's healthy for them to be exercising. But I know you're not in charge of that. That was kind of my general comment because I can see the mayor's face on the line too. So I'm going to be silent now.
Well, that is part of our multi-tier phased plan to open facilities, but we need to figure out how that is going to be played out.
Thanks for that. Mayor, did you want to weigh in or have anything to add about that?
I think I heard Jenny say she got calls about people playing tennis, and I'm thinking, well, they must be playing without net. That would be interesting.
No, they want to play.
They want to play. Okay, well, in due time.
Mm-hmm. I know that.
You know, a lot of us are dying to get out of the house. I know I am. I have a question about capital, or rather, I'm just gonna point out to councilors that The mayor recommends borrowing $82,000 for the playground at Four Corners. I actually biked over to Four Corners just a few days ago to look at some other capital needs, fencing and windows, and I totally forgot to look at the playground. Anything you wanted to add about that, Christy?
Sure. So the playground at Four Corners, we've kind of pieced it together over the years, and the core center structure is what we'll be replacing. And then because the ACES program is over there, which is a program for people with physical disabilities, there's going to be many new pieces that they can then access, because right now there's not enough that they can get to, like ADA accessible swings, a lot that do circular motions because they find that relaxing and soothing for them. So it'll be one of the best ADA accessible playgrounds in the city.
That's terrific. That's a really, really good point. Would the footprint be about the same?
It'll be a little bit wider.
Yeah, okay.
We have to work around with DPW. I'm not sure if Marlo is on here. I think I see him, because there is a drain line that goes through, so we have to adjust around that.
Right, and there's also the capital request for sidewalk from the parking lot to the front of the building there. Any further questions from councilors, either capital or budget operating?
Well, thank you so much. This does feel like a chess game here. Like I haven't played chess in a while with everyone popping up. It's quite fun.
Is it fun? It's maybe not the word. I was going to use the word draining, but sometimes it's fun.
As long as nobody's walking around where you get seasick, I think it's great. It's nice to see everybody. Be well.
This is Christy's first meeting, Otis. She hasn't been on for all of the.
Oh,
yeah, no, I just called in, and then my rec commission and my tri committee are much smaller.
Yeah. Well, this is standard for us. It's 20 every time, but thanks for jumping on. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll pull back up my budget here and welcome Director Fernando Fleury of the IT department. IT is on page 73 of your budget books. Welcome, Director Fleury. Thank you for your patience. I know you've been sitting here for 90 minutes already, but we appreciate it. Oh, and your microphone is muted.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are. So welcome.
Yeah, I have a hard time with IT stuff.
I don't believe you.
No. So you can see from the book, we were extremely busy last year with our projects, and that is a list of our major projects. We did a lot of other small things that just I didn't want to keep writing. And we are also very aggressive with like the new goals for next year. I want to take the time to thank my staff because, man, they just keep going and completing thing after thing. Every time I ask them for something, they always step up. So I want to really send them kudos. With that being said, I am ready to answer any questions. I'm pretty sure you're going to have some questions about probably the computer hardware line, which went up. That is, many of you are new. IT is cyclical in many ways. 5 years ago, I started here, and one of the first things we did was we built the backbone of the city, meaning switches, network equipment, and it's going to be 5 years again. They are in need of replacement. So that's a big item for us this year. So I am ready to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Councilor DeSorger.
Hi, Fernando.
Hi.
Thank you. I had a question about You also helped the schools to get, did you help, I heard that you helped the schools to get their computers ready to go out. Is that so?
We helped the accounting payroll part of the school to get. They actually didn't have laptops available, so we gave them some from the city until they got theirs, and then we did help them with that. Yes, the city also does help the school with their accounting software, and we also maintain the HVAC systems, computer systems that Director Vanderlinder uses.
Mm-hmm.
So we do work together with the schools.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Elmer, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Can you explain the more than threefold increase in the software budget? What software is that?
In the software, it went up by probably $3,000 from last year's. Are you talking about computer software or software maintenance?
Computer software.
Yeah, so last year all we needed to buy was basically some copies of Excel. This year we need to add some copies of Office Word, a server license for a new server that we're going to be standing up, virtual server. So it's really just a server license. And also I am getting some network switch management software for my team. That will be a one-time purchase.
I have a follow-up if I could. Do we pay for WebEx? I ask because Zoom sometimes seems easier to use, but I was told that WebEx was free.
No, they have free versions. We don't have the free version. We ended up going with WebEx because at the time when COVID was happening, they were the most stable platform at the time. Zoom was having all kinds of issues, and other platforms were having all kinds of issues as well. So to answer your question, we do pay for it. I mean, it's like anything else, and people prefer one over the other. For me, it was more about stability.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we have a question from Councillor Forgy. You want to type it or do you want to ask it?
If I type it, I might crack myself up. So, okay, never mind. Okay. So the question is in regard to an item under recent accomplishments. It just caught my eye. I wonder if you could explain it a little.
Sure.
It's in regard to city payroll to deploy and configure employee self-service portal. What does that mean? Yep. What is the purpose and function?
So basically, we use, you will hear about Munis, which is mainly our finance package software. Within that, we also are putting into place other modules. One will be in the self-service part of the employee self-service module, which will allow employees to go ahead and look at their times they're available for vacation or personal time. It will allow them to enter do online entering of their timesheets instead of we're still doing it in paper. So that's what we're trying to do. And we have deployed other things. For example, the workflow system is in the middle of testing so that the requisition workflow for both the schools and the city so that we can process or have more operational efficiencies about how we enter our requisitions into our system. So there's a lot of work that is happening with Munis. It's constantly going on.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Councillor DeSorger?
So I just have one more. And this is just, I'm just thinking aloud. Do you see any possibility of overlapping any of the Um, uh, and might it be cost effective, any of the technology part of the schools? Or
That's a loaded question.
you don't have to answer it.
I mean, no, I mean, to be honest with you, that's something that cities across the state are doing nowadays. I think Holyoke just went on board. I was talking to Northampton did it 2 years ago. Chicopee is now doing it. And I think West Springfield just did it as well. I'm part of the Western Mass Regional IT Directors Group. And there are some bumps along the way when you're first getting things going on, getting set up, but eventually it can pay dividends as far as purchasing power. It's really good. You're a much bigger entity. You can do the contracts for printing, buy computers at better rates. Probably for IT, it's easier to combine compared to other departments because a data packet is a data packet.
Mhm.
It moves a certain way. There are differences between schools and the city. I at one time ran a small K through 12 private school, so you have to be familiar with FERPA and all those different things, MCAS, all those different regulations, and E-rate, which is huge. But that's a question for somebody above my pay grade.
Okay, I'm sorry for springing that on you, but I was thinking of it when you were talking about your larger budget item, and they had one too. And there are things that I actually don't totally understand. I'm very happy that I'm able to get on WebEx. So there you go.
No, and we do pay for it, and also we were able to get those Chromebooks on time. It was really helpful that we were able to get those out.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you and Kathy for helping us all get up to snuff as we begin with these.
Yeah, I can't do it without my team.
Okay,
they're great guys.
Yeah, and the timing of getting the council Chromebooks, I think, was really key this year as well. I know we'd be in trouble, I think, if everyone had to use their home computers. I know I've got 2 screens in front of me. All right. Further questions on the technology budget? I have one. There's actually a capital item for security upgrades. Now, since the public is watching, I'm sure that the closed circuit TV cameras all function perfectly. That said, if they do not, what would be the benefits to perhaps replacing and upgrading the system?
So basically, as I put in the capital request, actually most of the things that I do for the city, I don't really make them up. It's what departments need, right? So many times we have vandalism. That's an example at the Energy Park. There's vandalism or maybe some drug use. And we'll get a request from the police department for the video footage of the cameras there. And there's many times that we can't really help them out because they are either not working properly or are non-existent. So therefore, that's why we have that part there. We also would like to be able to keep an eye on our critical locations like the water pumping stations. And I'm not 100% sure, but that might be something that's coming down the line from Homeland Security as well. But don't quote me on that. I was reading about something like that, but right now we're not really watching them.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Director Fleury? There is an increase in salary and wages. That looks to be, you'd be looking to add staff. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it will be, I would love to have another network administrator, but I know it's tough to add somebody like that. So it would be really, a lower tier technician that will be able to help. We do have a lot of projects. We have 2 large building projects that are coming up. And the other thing that I wanted to address with that position is that I have been throwing a lot of different systems to our users, and I feel bad because I don't have the time to really train them the way I would like to do that. And this person will be more along the lines, not just helping me to move these projects along, but to also, help to identify where some of our users need a little bit more help and a little bit more hand-holding because they are sophisticated.
Absolutely. I certainly see the need for that. There's also an increase in, although it's slight, it's a modest increase in internet and communication lines. Now,
that really, I'm sorry, that really is not an increase. What I'm doing with that is I am aggregating the backup lines that are in different locations. Every year, I take a little bit from other departments and bring them in.
Right.
The software maintenance piece went up a little bit because I took some of the software from the DPW over. At one time, we're not centralized. So every year, I do a little bit more, bring it in, put it in one budget, manage it.
Right. That's right. So it's similar to the work that Director Collins does in the energy department with having kind of one central department overseeing and hopefully makes everything run better.
We try.
All right. Any further questions for Director Fleury? Okay. Not seeing any. Thank you, Director, for all of your work, and especially in getting the EOC up and running, but also the WebEx system and helping the school with their Chromebooks. I can only imagine how busy you are.
Don't forget every one of our users that are working from home right now too. That was daunting. Yeah. So once again, if my staff really stepped up to the plate, and also not just my staff, but our end users, they were really patient with us as we're trying to work through some of the glitches. I really appreciate how I think that we have a really good team in the city as far as with us interfacing with the rest of the departments.
Great, that's good to hear. I hope you get to take a vacation whenever you're allowed to leave the state.
Well, I'll take it and I'll have my laptop with me like I always do.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Greenfield Public Library, page 135 in your budget books. We're going to welcome Director Ellen Boyer. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, Councilor Wheeler and everyone else. Nice to see you all. I do apologize. I was someone who did not answer Councilor DeSorja's questions prior to the meeting. My apologies for that. The library has 10 full-time employees. They are currently working and they are in the budget for next year. In the budget for next year, I'm asking for an additional part-time employee, 15 hours a week for nights and Saturdays. We currently have 2 people in that position. I would like to add a third. So before we look at the budget, I'd like to tell you guys what we're doing. We are closed to the public. Unfortunately, that is our main job. But we are still working. We are working staggered schedules spread out over 7 days. A lot of the projects we're working on cannot be done remotely. We're preparing our collection of materials for the move to the new library. We are physically touching each and every one of the 30,000 items we own to check for accuracy, condition, and popularity. We are ordering and processing new physical materials to add to the collection so that when we open our doors, you'll be able to get all those bestsellers that you can't get right now. We are also rearranging our furniture and our computers so that when we welcome people back into the library, we can still keep them safe and physically distanced. I know there are several counselors who have used our public access computers. If you recall, you are right smack dab next to the person next to you. It won't be that way when we reopen. We are also working remotely and taking advantage of the mayor's telecommunications plan. The projects we're doing remotely, we've started a library blog. We're keeping up with our social media posts. We continue to offer all of our collections virtually. However, every other library in the state of Massachusetts is trying to access those virtual collections. So your ability to borrow, view, or listen to, you may have to step out of your comfort zone. You may have to read something you wouldn't normally read, or watch something you wouldn't normally watch. We did start a virtual book club. Our first meeting was Tuesday night. We have undertaken a community history project. We're reaching out to people and asking them if they're willing to share their experiences living through this time, whether they want to send us a piece of artwork, a poem, or whether they want to answer some of the pre-prepared questions we have. And then we will add that to our local history room in our new library. And like Hope is doing, we're keeping in touch with our volunteers, our homebound delivery recipients, and our on-call staff. Like Christy is doing, she's keeping in touch with her national group of rec departments. There is an American Library Association that is providing us with some guidance about phased reopening of the physical structure. So that's what we're up to right now. Fun and games. If you have any questions on my budget, I'd be happy to answer that.
All right. Thank you, Director Boyer. Do we have questions from our committee members? Oh, I know it's a fairly simple budget. I personally can't wait till the library can reopen, even in some fashion, even enough to. But thankfully, if you anyone who's seen my house, I have like 9 bookshelves, so I'm just catching up on the things around the house. But I certainly look forward to the library reopening. Any questions on the library budget? Councillor DeSorger.
I just have a question about, is that CW Mars, is that just like the dues that you pay so that we can all borrow from, like the interlibrary loan? Is that what everybody pays into that?
It is dues, and it's based on the size of your library, so it's a scaled dues structure. It's also things like the computer reservation system comes from CW Mars. That's over and above dues. Mobile printing, if you want to print something off your laptop while you're in the library, that's over and above the regular dues. But the bulk of that, about $36,000 of that 40 is our dues. CW Mars is a sole source provider. That's not a negotiable price. It's something we have to pay to be a member of the network.
Okay, thanks.
And just as a compliment, the virtual book group this week was unbelievably wonderful.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Do we have a question from Councillor Forgy?
Thank you. I just wondered if you could update us on the library project and also the status of the grant that's been awarded by the state on behalf of the project. Where do we stand?
Okay, so I'll start with the status of the grant. Its status has not changed because of the pandemic, nor has the timeline that we need to adhere to. So that has not changed either. That grant is dispersed to us in 5 payments. We have already received the first payment. It's a little under $2 million that's sitting in a town account. We haven't spent much of that yet, but we do have some fees for the architectural work that's being done, as well as the project management work that's being done. The building committee is meeting twice a month. We have settled on an interior design. We're very happy with it. And at the last meeting, I'm pretty sure we settled on an exterior design. We didn't take a vote, but everyone seemed to be happy with that. I'm happy with the progress that we're making. So I believe the next step, Councillor Forgy, is that the architect goes into a more detailed design development where they will be working with the IT department and central maintenance about where are the electrical outlets located, where is the data closet and the server room, all those little itty bitty things that are well outside of my area of expertise, and I'm happy to have the expert advisors helping us.
I was just looking for a general update. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Wiedegartner, did you have something to add?
I'm pretty sure Ellen would agree with me. Mid-COVID-19, some of the most delightful meetings that I have are the meetings of the library building committee, because it's about the future. It's about getting past where we are today. So everything is, as she said, working like clockwork. And because we know that the fire department and the public safety complex are key to that timeline, I will tell you we are pretty well on track at the moment with that. We are in the process of hiring our design person, the next person up, the next phase of it, and I think we'll have that in place by sometime next week. So right now, both projects are continuing to move forward in the way that they're supposed to, and we hope that we can make it all work. Well, we know we'll make it all work. We just hope we can make it all work on a timeline that makes sense. And I think right now we're on track to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Any last questions for Director Boyer about the library? Okay. Not seeing any. Director, thank you for everything, and we hope we get to see you in person soon. So we will now move on to GCET, and we'll welcome John Lunt, General Manager.
Hi, everybody. You're almost done.
It's been a long night, as it always is, over here at Ways and Means.
So I'm happy to answer questions about the budget. I want to take a second just to first say GCET, we are essential employees under communications and IT, so we have been working steadily through what's been going on recently. We're still working our full 40-hour week. We've been working from home since March 23rd. And I do want to take a moment to just say that everyone at GCET, they have done a tremendous job. It is not easy to transition something that complex to a fully remote location, and they have done it without skipping a beat. I want to particularly thank our two outside plant people. Have been working both on expanding the network and doing important things like getting the EOC connected direct fiber and working on how a new way that we can sign people up so we can do things like the Equity Access Program that we just finished. We have students who were not able to afford internet and couldn't access remote learning. Town worked with us, we worked with schools, IT. The schools provided Chromebooks with help from people to get those set and ready to go. We had some great private sector contributions from...
Sorry, John, I'm just going to interrupt you for one moment. I think a couple people are having trouble hearing you. Is that right?
Okay, is that better?
I think that's better. Is that better? Give me a thumbs up from anyone. Okay,
Good?
I'm getting
Better?
thumbs up. All right, thank you.
All right.
Continue.
Okay, so there was a lot of work done both with the schools in the town to offer this program. We will install equipment for free. We're providing free internet service for the balance of the school year, and we're prepared to do that into the summer and beyond, should we need to. And I did want to take a moment to say that the Greenfield Education Foundation, Greenfield Savings Bank, and Gilmore and Farrell Insurance have been incredibly generous in helping us set up a program that allows us to defray the costs of that equipment so we can continue to sign up kids who need access so they can participate in addition to that, we have figured out an entirely new way to install. We actually installed 28 new customers this last month after not installing anyone in March. So we are continuing to expand. We are continuing to grow the network and to grow the number of customers we have. We're over 1,500 customers, and we're up to about saving people about $750,000 a year. I'm hearing again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's something.
Okay?
We need to figure out what's going on with your volume, because I'm able to hear you, but it sounds like multiple people on the call are not. So it's either a volume level issue.
Is that any better? Is that better for people?
I'm waiting to see. I see one thumbs up there.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple of yeses there.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. You want me to go back to a certain point, or?
I'm not sure, because I was able to catch it. So.
All right. So we were able to work on the equity access program. We are still working a full week. All of our employees are working a full 40-hour week, and we are continuing to work to install customers and expand the network. And we're, I think, at a time where people really need it. We're up to saving customers over $750,000 a year versus what they were doing previously.
Okay. Great. Thanks for the update, especially the program with the school. That's so important. GCET budget is bigger than a lot of the smaller departments that we've been dealing with tonight. So we're going to jump into questions.
Sure.
Councilor Homer, do you have one?
Yeah, John, can you give us an update of how much of the town is covered? And then by the time we're done with the 3-year budget, how much will be?
Currently, we're around 83 or 84% coverage. It's hard to get to 100% coverage anywhere, but we anticipate by the end of the build out, we should be at 95+% coverage of the town.
And would that include the tricky places I'm always bothering you about, where new fiber has to be laid and things like that?
Yes, it would. Yeah. By the time the build out's done, we do have new fiber that we'll need to pull in certain areas.
Okay. Do we have a question from Councilor Forgy?
Hi, John.
Hey, how are you?
Okay. What I really want is, first of all, I'm going to say the obvious, which is that you're an enterprise fund. But for those that are new to this budget process, could you, in a nutshell, explain what an enterprise fund is? And and also, can you explain at this point whether the enterprise fund still needs to pay back funds to the town of Greenfield?
An enterprise fund is a method of accounting used in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for portions of services that towns give that are ideally supposed to be able to pay for themselves through the fees that they charge. That is not where GSET is at yet. We're still growing and getting to the point where we can do that. Our revenues have grown tremendously in the last few years, but it was always going to take a few years for us to get to the point where we could be self-sustaining. So we're not there yet. We're a lot closer than we were. Some of the changes in expense in this year's budget reflect taking away some of the supports that were in place early on for GSET. One of the biggest ones is somewhere in between $230,000 and $250,000 in grant-funded wages for different parts of the operation. There is no grant funding for those wages in next year's budget, which is what gives you that increase on paper, even though the actual ask in terms of what people are actually paying is going down from last year.
Follow up, if I may. Council Wheeler, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What is the current rate that people who are using the service right now are paying to the fund?
There are three basic rates. There are 3 levels for internet and 3 levels for internet and TV as a bundle. We charge either $40, $50, or $70 for 30 megabit, 75 megabit, or 150 megabit service just for internet. And for TV bundles, we charge $70, $100, or $120 for 50 or 100 megabit internet, and the variance in price is driven by just how many channels, what the size of the TV package is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions from counselors on, yeah?
So this is the first one of these that we had come up. And I had talked to somebody about the enterprise funds before, but I don't think I have as clear an understanding of it as I should. But so if I'm asking the wrong questions, just say so. How about like, when I see the retirement benefits, etc., is that paid for? I'm talking on page 162. Your retirement assessment of $125,000, which everybody needs the retirement benefits. Is this something that like eventually comes out of GSET, or like when we're actually looking at this budget? I understand how Councilor Forgy explained this, but I guess you need to explain that a little bit more to me.
Sure. Retirement, we take part in the town retirement program. The rates for that are set by PERAC. So it's based on the salaries of people within the enterprise fund. GSET is responsible for paying its portion of the retirement. The town takes care of other town departments. School pays their own. GSET is set separately, and we pay through the town we pay either through the town or directly to the retirement board. So we are responsible for paying for retirement assessments for GSET.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, it's just a different budget that we're looking at. And and will you be, I think I saw in capital, you're 185 in capital for more build out? Do you need more building out?
That's really the key for us, is our ability to continue to grow and get the network to the level of coverage that will comfortably get us the amount of subscribers we need to be sustainable on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And thanks for helping with all of the schools.
Sure.
That was a godsend for many people.
happy to do it.
And quick follow-up. Actually, I'll defer to Councilor Elmer here. Councilor Elmer, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I hate to ask this, John, but so what's the break-even point? When's that going to happen?
Well, it's for us, it comes when we are able to take in enough through rates revenue to cover our expenses. This is the last year where you should see a big step up in expenses. You'll notice that the big expenses here are principal payments on the long-term debt. Our debt payments go from $297 to $394. We're no longer getting the CDBG support. That's about $250,000. Those are two things that once there is no more support, there is no more support, and we're replacing that with revenues. The only other large expense increase is in network operations, and that's two issues. One is a variable expense. Part of that is the programming for TV that we pay for, but it is a true variable expense in that we never pay it unless we have a customer who has bought the TV package. The other portion of that, a smaller part of that, is an increase in bandwidth. I will say we have seen a very significant increase in bandwidth usage in the last several months, which is very unsurprising. But that is something that grows as we add more customers. But customers are using GCET heavily at the moment at all hours. That there is not 1 second of the day in 24 hours where we don't have quite a few people connected to the system. People are working from home, and we have had to expand our capacity, which we can do. But those are really the main drivers of increases: the removal of the CDBG supports, the cost for TV, the increase in the debt, and the fact that we had to buy some more bandwidth. That's really where all the increases come from. And if we can get to if we can add the customers that we plan to this year, we've added about 600 customers last year. We need to add another several hundred customers to get to the point where we can feel comfortable that we'll be billing enough on a monthly basis. When I started, we billed 2,000. We're close to 100,000 a month now, but we still have a ways to go. We still have another $25,000 to $30,000 a month of business we need to put in. So we need to grow, and we need to get to a coverage size that will allow us at a decent percentage of uptake to get enough customers to be sustainable. I think you can see from the arc of how the business has gone, we definitely will do it. We need time to get there.
Thanks for that explanation and question. I think anyone who's been following GCET regularly for the past few years, like I have, probably has a fair amount of confidence at this point. This thing is working. It's a model for what other small cities should be doing. And I look forward to supporting it more. Quick question about the capital, which I think I know the answer to. We get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions over in Precinct 7 about build out, and I know we're gonna hopefully get some partial build out down Deerfield Street this year. But what I tell people is GCET needs time to expand and funding to expand.
Yeah.
And those things are tied together to some degree, right? So the $185,000 appropriation, even if it were higher, you kind of wouldn't be able to necessarily get more build out done in a year. Is that correct?
Mostly, yeah. I think, what we use the capital for is for the build of materials, the physical things we need to buy for build out. That's the fiber itself, but it's also, you have to buy mounts and brackets. You have to buy consumer premise equipment. So we spend it on that. We don't at this time feel like we could bring on someone else in an operational sense to speed up the build out, because we run projections all the time, and we're trying to do the best balance we can about having to build, but trying to be as close to break even as we can get at this point in our development.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Question from Councillor DeSorger.
I had the mic off. I had the mic off because I feel like I'm helping somehow with bandwidth. I've begun to understand so much more as we're having these meetings. And I'm glad to know that people can buy bandwidth, which I just learned tonight. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not going to tell you what I thought on television. Okay, because that's just not a good idea. What's the plan for, what's the order of where you're going to build out to next?
Currently, our project, sorry, I'm waving my family out of the room. I don't know if people saw that. Sorry about that. Currently, the order of project is we are doing survey work to head up to Leiden Woods and also doing work to expand down Deerfield Street in that area and up Mill Street. And then at that point, we're looking to look to fill in the core continually. So we're looking at ways to solve what are some intractable problems for us, like what do we do in places where there are no poles? What do we do with places where there's no conduit that we can use? So those are problems we're still working towards. Okay. After those main project areas, we are looking more in North Greenfield to go up Leiden Road and loop around on Barton Road, back down. We've done some great work. I want to give a shout out to our operations manager who has worked with the fire department and found a number of conduits that people had completely forgotten existed. So we'll be able to get under 91 in a couple of areas in ways that we didn't think we could. And that will allow us to try to sort of weave together Log Plain Road, Bernardston Road, Country Club Road, and Leiden Road, which is a significant portion of the sort of more rural part of Greenfield and the populations there too. So that's the basic plan. But first we're working on Leiden Woods, Leiden Road up to Leiden Woods and in the Deerfield Street area.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Lunt? Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, folks. Sorry about the microphone.
No problem, thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Okay, so thus wraps up at 8:17 our small departments and budgetary discussion. Moving on to other business. I know someone wanted to jump in and maybe had something. That was the mayor. Mayor, you have the floor.
I just wanted to say, and it probably goes without saying, but you guys have witnessed tonight, and I think you probably do because I know you all appreciate what really wonderful people we have working for the city of Greenfield and how seriously they take their jobs and how important it is to them to be able to continue to do their work. So I love working with them, and I hope they feel the same about me, but I just want to acknowledge this was a great performance. I couldn't have done better if I was watching something on television tonight because these are stellar people. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
You're here. I appreciate it, and I agree. We are lucky to have the people that we have running the departments right now in the city. Any further business from committee members? Right. Seeing none, our next Ways and Means budget meeting is Monday, May 4th, this coming Monday at 4 p.m. It will be a WebEx meeting, just like this one. We'll talk about PW and central maintenance, which is now under the auspices of DPW. Just a reminder that DPW has many capital projects this year, as they always do. So please write down your questions for Director Warner. And we look forward to another one of these in just a few days. Everybody, I hope everyone has a great weekend. I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved, 4G.
Second, DeSorga.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned at 8:20 p.m. Thanks.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.